Deputy Speaker. Can I begin by saying that in my 26 years or so in the House, I've never read a report from the Standards and Privileges or Privileges Committee that has been so damning and so excoriating. And nor, I think, have I read one that has been so carefully prepared over such a long period of time by members from across the House who have clearly taken the obligations placed upon them by the House with the greatest seriousness in difficult circumstances. So can I begin by saying that we all in this House owe the Right Honourable and Honourable members of the Privileges Committee who conducted this work and have produced this report that we're considering today an extensive debt of gratitude. I know I'm not the only person who's said that, but I think it bears repetition because it matters to all of us. It matters to all of us, whichever party we're in, whether we're backbenchers, whether we're ministers, whether we hope to be ministers, whether we were ministers for a few weeks and perhaps hope we might be again, or whether we intend to remain backbenchers, or whether we intend to stand down, or whether we end up getting defeated at a general election in the future. It matters to anybody in this House that the privileges of this House are properly upheld, because if they are not, then our representative democracy cannot properly function. And the report made it perfectly clear at the beginning of its conclusion that was the case, and I agree with them very much. It matters. This matters. So those who take the view that it's a trivial punishment that we're now considering, given that Mr Johnson has left, couldn't be more wrong. It is important that the House, which established and asked the committee to do this report, consider its findings and vote as it wishes to do, but I hope that every member of this House votes in favour of the committee's findings and its recommendations. There have been ample opportunities for those who object fundamentally to the way in which the report has been produced to have had an influence on it. The motion today was amendable, but it hasn't been amended. There have been opportunities, as other members and Right Honourable members who have spoken in the debate have made clear, throughout this process which has taken over a year, to have an impact on the membership of the committee, on the terms of reference and the work that it's been asked to do. It has done what we've asked it to do, and the findings are quite shocking. The report sets out egregious behaviour by the former Prime Minister, amounting to multiple contempts of Parliament. We must draw a line in the sand to stop ministers thinking that they can lie to Parliament, whether they are the most junior Under-Secretary, whether they are the Prime Minister. They cannot go to that dispatch box and deliberately lie. If they do, they must be punished for it by this House. If they do it and get away with it, as is the way with liars, they think they can do it again. The current Mr Johnson appeared to think that one should lie repeatedly and lie big. But if we do what I believe we should tonight, and support the report of the Privileges Committee, he will have been stopped in his tracks. He will have been dealt with for the lying that he did at that dispatch box, and that can only be good for our democracy. And that is why every member of this House who is present should be looking to vote today in favour of the report. And I find it strange in those circumstances. I commend those members of the opposition benches, particularly of the government, who are here and have made it clear that they will support the report. I'd rather hope to see the Prime Minister and far more of the Cabinet here, because it should matter to them as much as it matters to those of us on this side of the House. If in some day in the future, which I think will happen, they will be in opposition, they will want to know that they're being told the truth from that dispatch box, just as much as any other member of the House. So I think it's a shame that the Prime Minister doesn't seem to be here. I think it doesn't send the right signal that the House takes the matter seriously enough if some parts of it decide on party political basis, that for party political management reasons it's easier to run away and hide. That is a shame. Madam Deputy Speaker, the debates we've been having about knowingly are esoteric, in some ways legally esoteric, but the committee did find that Mr Johnson had deliberately misled the House. That does take knowledge of forethought. One, to be deliberately doing something, one has to be aware that one is doing it. That he deliberately misled the committee, that he breached confidence of the committee when he didn't like the findings that he was shown in the report that he got to see before the committee had finalised it and before it was published, and then impugning the committee and thereby undermining the democratic process of the House, being complicit in the campaign of abuse and attempted intimidation of the committee. And this has gone over an extended period of time. So not only did the committee find that there were 5 times when he misled the House, when he said guidance was followed completely in number 10, the rules and guidance were followed at all times, that events in number 10 were within the rules and guidance, and that they'd been followed at all times when he was present, when he failed to tell the House about his own knowledge of the gatherings, where rules or guidance had been broken, even though he was there and he could have said what he saw, when he relied on repeated assurances that the rules hadn't been broken, the assurances that he received weren't accurately represented by him to the House, when he gave the impression there needed to be an investigation by Sue Gray before he could answer questions about which he had personal knowledge that he didn't reveal, and when he purported to correct the record but instead continued to mislead the House, and by his continuing denials of committee. I mean, it's pretty clear, and the evidence can all be read, that he was being deliberately disingenuous when he tried to reinterpret his statements to the House to avoid their plain meaning and reframe the clear impression that he intended to give, when he advanced unsustainable interpretations of the rules and guidance to advance the argument that the lack of social distancing at gatherings was permissible within the exceptions, when he advanced legally impermissible reasons to justify the gatherings. It's pretty clear if you read the report that this isn't an inadvertent or occasional slight slip. This is a pattern of behaviour. Well, the honourable gentleman, right honourable gentleman has only just come in, but I will give way to him.
I've heard several of the speeches prior to hers, but I'm grateful to her for giving way nonetheless. The Right Honourable Stone made the point about the difference between being deliberate and being knowing, but not dwelling on that. Will she comment on the sanction? Because it seems to me she's right. The privileges of this House do matter, and the way the privileges are managed matter too. But one might have expected the Privileges Committee to have some kind of sentencing guidelines, if I can put it in those terms. One might have expected the Honourable Lady who chaired it, given that she's been here since I was in full-time education, to have insisted that at the beginning.
I think that it's entirely a matter for the committee what sanction they propose. It seems pretty clear from what they've said that the proposed sanction was increased following the further contempts that occurred when the draft report was sent to him because of the way in which he behaved in leaking the report of the committee. So I don't know. I'm not on the committee. I don't know what any proposals that were being considered were before that further contempt. But I don't think 90 days is unreasonable given the extensive period of time, the numbers of contempts and the way in which he then behaved, having been confronted with his behaviour. I also think, by the way, that it's important that the issue about the former member's past, people might think it's trivial, but it's sending a signal of extreme disapproval that this kind of behaviour will not be allowed with impunity if a former member decides to behave in this manner. And I think that that is entirely reasonable. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I don't wish to go through any more of the details, but beyond saying it's an egregious example, one of the worst that I've ever seen. The committee members have done the House a service. The truth starts here. It starts at that dispatch box. It must be observed And if we don't have that, we don't have a functioning parliamentary democracy. That is why every member of this House must and should, in my view, vote this evening to support the committee and to approve the motion in respect of this report.
Angela Richardson.